Britain, after the invasion of Poland, responds by, after the fall of France, attempts to help France by landing most of its army at a French port called Dunkirk, or a Belgian port called Dunkirk. The German army, however, moved so quickly, with new technology, with quicker tanks and motorcycles and stuff, they move so quickly, they get to the British army before the British army can set up and be prepared to fight. The British army is at risk of being completely wiped out in the very first battle it fights in the war. The British government will go on the radio and ask anyone who has a boat to help bring the British troops back across the English Channel. And so you'll have this amazing moment where fishermen and tugboat drivers and all kinds of people go and they evacuate the British army and bring it safely back to England. But Dunkirk makes the world realize how much trouble the opponents of the Nazis are really in and how dire this threat is. FDR responds by asking for $1 billion in defense. One day after Churchill had sent a list of equipment to save the United Kingdom, FDR pushes through this appropriation. So clearly, FDR is responding to Great Britain's need to resist the Germans. Some, including Joseph Kennedy, father of John Kennedy, said, "Don't bother, it's too late. There's nothing we can do to save Europe now. We waited too long." But FDR is not going to give up. He trades 50 World War I destroyers for the right to build a base on a British Caribbean island, which we don't even really want. We're just giving them the destroyers and trying to make it look like a fair trade. We allow Britain to buy planes that had been made for the U.S. Army, with the argument being, well, we're not really using them anyway, so FDR lets them buy them. But he's really just trying to help, of course. In July 1940, 66% of Americans saw Germany as a threat to the United States. The Burke-Wadsworth Act institutes a peacetime draft as America begins ramping up for the possibility we might end up in the war. But not everybody agreed that we should move towards helping the Allies or get involved in the war. The America First Committee opposed all of this. And it makes war the main issue in the 1940 election. Of course, this is FDR running for a third term. The most famous member of the American First Committee is the aviation hero Charles Lindbergh, who had been the first person to fly an airplane across the Atlantic. And now he's going around speaking out against us becoming involved in World War II. Lindbergh, of course, had been a supporter of the Nazi Party as they rose to power. Now, he didn't know that they were committing genocide, so just to be fair. One of the people that's going to push hard for America to help in the war is Dr. Seuss. These are all Dr. Seuss. You've already seen a few. These are all cartoons where Dr. Seuss is attacking the idea of staying out of the war. There you see him cartooning Lindbergh. He wasn't Dr. Seuss. I guess he was. Yeah, he did go by Dr. Seuss at the time. In the campaign of 1940, FDR stays silent on the idea of running for a third term until the Democratic National Convention insists that he run. Now, he probably wanted to, and that was probably orchestrated, but that's the way he chose it. And the idea was times are just simply too serious. The problems are too serious to change leaders at this point. The FDR chooses the extremely liberal Henry Wallace as his vice president. Wallace was a very pro-labor, very pro kind of common man guy. The party itself doesn't like Wallace. They think he's too pro-labor, too pro-regular people. The Republicans nominate an Indiana businessman named Wendell Willkie. The only real difference between the two candidates in terms of the policies they proposed was FDR wanted to help the Allies in the war, and Willkie was an isolationist. And, of course, the whole idea of, is it okay to elect a president for the third term? Willkie does better than any Republican since Hoover had in 28, but nonetheless, he still gets crushed pretty easily in the election.